G'day YouTube, WarblesOnALot here. Guess who decided on a public holiday not to go to town to buy bread because the highway would be absolutely full of tourists going to Queensland, coming back from Queensland. So instead I came the back way to Deepwater. But it turns out that Deepwater is shut. The roadhouse is open and the top pub was open. And so your intrepid reporter ate a pizza and drank a cup of coffee in Deepwater. And we will see how hot and tasty the remaining half of pizza might be when I get it back home in another 29 kilometres. And because I've been to the other end of Deepwater and back, I think I've done 30 kilometres on about 28% of a battery, which is pretty good. And we are now going to go for a slow ride on a dirt road, Nance Park Road, and then Yarraford Road, which is bitumen. Okay, put my other gauntlet on and we'll see how we go. I fully intended to be home by now, because it's about 20 to 4, and we might get home in about 3/4 of an hour. There we go. And let's hope we don't lose another hat. Welcome to Nance Park Road. Putting the strap on that left-hand gauntlet. Okay, enjoy this bitumen, it doesn't last very long. Those of you who've been watching the channel for any length of time may well remember this bit of road. This is where Barnaby Joyce put up great big roads to recovery signs, applauding himself for the bitumen. The trouble is, the bitumen ended at the cemetery turnoff, and his road to the future ended at the Deepwater Cemetery. As soon as I made a YouTube video about it, the Barnaby sign came down. I got to be on my wing mirrors pretty hard this trip, because I find I got to ride to avoid the corrugations and potholes. So yes, I am smack in the centre of the road, and hopefully I won't get skittled. But I am managing 35 k's. I think it was 30, might have been 36 k's average, or 31, probably 31, because it took me 51 minutes to do 29 kilometres, and I did the 29 kilometres on 27% of the battery. So I'm getting pretty good at this slow riding. But the big thing is keeping a bloody eagle eye on the potholes and the traffic. And given the option of tourists in a hurry trying to get home at the end of a long weekend, I'm going to take the potholes and go slowly between the potholes rather than try not to get run over on the bitumen by high-speed tourists. And as promised, we got a pretty much blue sky day, so we should have a fairly good cinematographic result at the end of this, even if it might not be a great big conversation. Don't know. Kind of difficult to develop a big, long, involved narrative when you're trying not to fall off or get run over. But yeah, I thought I was going to make a totally different video. We're going to commence with 2 loaves of electric bread and 1 litre of electric milk from Deepwater to Yarraford, with only that little tiny bit on the highway. But anyway, we're coming up to a pair of 90-degree corners. You don't often see these. And they've got the biggest bloody fence post I've ever seen. Or maybe not the biggest, but clearly somebody did not like fencing. So they made sure that after they did this job, they were never going to have to do it again because it was going to last longer than they did. Now, those fence posts there are pretty normal, and that one there is pretty normal. Turn the 90-degree corner and wait till you see the bloody fence posts at the other end of this straight. Assuming you could see them, because we're going into the sun at the moment. As I said, all this was intended to start, at my place at 10 in the morning, leave Deepwater at about midday with the sun overhead and get a totally different lighting scenario. Okay, so here we come to another 90-degree corner. Have a look to the left of the tree. See those gate posts? They are huge. Look at them. Look at those posts. They are bloody enormous. And I'm not going back for a second look. Just hope there's not too much dust getting onto that bloody pizza through the cracks in the box. First time since getting the new teeth that I've gone out anywhere and eaten the pizza. Felt like a bit of a dickhead, asking for a knife and fork and a plate, but plastic teeth that are glued in, there's no other way to do it. And this is sort of a good bit of dirt. There are much worse bits yet to come, sort of thing. Any corrections to the potholes, you've really got to make them a long way out. very proud of myself for having coffee and pizza at the pub, not being tempted to drink any alcohol. Not only because I've sort of more or less, well, I have given it up, but a week ago I did allow myself to have a couple of standard drinks after a particularly stressful evening, but I can't really go into that without delving into other people's business, and they've asked me not to, so I won't. Isn't this a lovely combination of corrugations, potholes, flicker vertigo from tree shadow and driving into the sun? And when you got a brim on your hat, you don't notice so much because you automatically, reflexively tilt your head to give yourself a better view. And in a full-face motorbike helmet made for highways, you got no brim. I've got photos of this gate and the mailbox over here on the right hand side back in the day when the sign on the mailbox, which currently says Allison, and the mailbox used to be a different colour and the sign was blue and white, but that sign used to read marijuana, M-A-R-R-A-W-A-N-N-A, and it read that at least till about 20 years ago, because when my son was 15 he took great delight in photographing me and himself in front of that sign. I always figured it was just exactly what it looked like, a joke, but the people who owned the property for the whole time the sign was there, they reckoned that it was the traditional name for the place. Yeah. I don't think any of the local Aborigines agreed with that theory. I think it was just the new age generation of sheep farmers and cow farmers having a joke at the expense of their neighbours and farmers. It's certainly a pristine day for it anyway. And with Bond's air cell long johns underneath the Levi jeans, it's not even too terribly cold. It's probably only about 12 degrees air temperature outside. Now here's a bastard with a pothole. Cow on the wrong side of the fence. And there's not a single thing I can do about it because I don't know whose cow it is and I don't know what their phone number is anyway. And I don't know where they live. Good luck to whoever encounters a black cow in the middle of the night on a dirt road by surprise. And let's hope they're not going too fast for the encounter. Otherwise it's going to cost them a lot of money in motor car repairs and the cow's not going to be feeling very good either. Well, I think it was what they would pretty much call a large calf or a small steer, I don't know. Not being a moo cowologist. That improved pasture, it's probably superphosphate fertiliser, it sure friggin' stands out. Nearly as green as Ireland. This is going to be a rough corner. I either ride in here where it's kind of awful, or I could have gone out on the outside where it was smooth, but if a car come in the middle of the corner I had absolutely no possible hope of being in the right place at the right time. So we took the rough option. That's what we're doing here. And let's hope the right-hand front shock absorber doesn't lose too much oil in the process. The last time I went to town, I was looking for my Evel Knievel trousers at the motorbike shop, and they were not there. But the motorcycle shop owner had a look at this thing out of curiosity. He's been resisting it for a couple of months. And that was one of the things he noticed. It was the only thing that he noticed that he could basically say was wrong with it, was the right-hand front fork was leaking a little bit. And admittedly it had done 1,000 kilometres from new when he first found the leak. And I had not noticed it. But as he said, if it was the other fork, it would be putting oil all over your front disc, which is not what I would like to have happen. So when I left my place, or before I left, I wiped the shock absorber with toilet paper and saved that toilet paper to see what 6 days of sitting outside under a tarpaulin from the previous wipe down had produced, which was not much. And I'll see how we go when I get back with 60 kilometres of riding and see how much oil is leaked out. But I think I'm going to have to ring up AE Motorcycles at Millterra Road, Leavesby, and ask for directions on what to do about a slightly leaking right-hand front fork. Hopefully they can converse with the local motorbike mechanic, and I can pay somebody who knows what the inside of a motorbike front fork looks like to go in there and replace the bloody O-ring or whatever it is that's gone wrong. Front forks do a hell of a lot of work on this bike, and the actual limiting factor for how fast you're allowed to go is what the front forks can cope with. 60 kilometres an hour maximum. It's a bit interesting because when it's deregulated the bike will do 70 kilometres an hour. And I was talking to somebody who owns an Earldian bottle of Sauron, and they get 80 out of the Sauron when it's fully charged. But when they tried riding to town, they rode it as fast as it would go until they got there, and they got to town on economy limping at 25 kilometres an hour, and their battery was totally flat. I think if you're going to go anywhere of a significant distance in terms of, you know, this motorbike's battery capacity, you've got to be prepared to slow down. We finally reached 60% capacity. Couldn't tell you quite how many kilometres, probably about 39, 40. going a little bit faster on the way home because I've already ridden the road today and I know where the bad bits are and where I can get away with riding a little bit faster. Once we get around this next corner at the top of the dam, then we should have favourable sun over my right shoulder rather than into his face. Look at that, we've got water in front to the left of the track, and we've got water in front to the right of the track. Probably not anymore, but when I was a kid that was the largest privately owned dam in the southern hemisphere. So they said. Quite possibly they didn't have a look in South America or South Africa, but that was the story at the time. There we go, sunset over the water, looking northwestern Australia. And now we're looking at the Ranges Valley feedlot. 25,000 moo cows living behind barbed wire, all destined for the Japanese market. Late in the afternoon, getting cold. We're not totally late. Probably about 4 o'clock. So anyway, I'm not going to stop and chit chat and talk and carry on. And we're going down here under regenerative braking. To be honest, all I'm doing is rolling the throttle off. I'm not even touching the bloody brakes. I heard Elon Musk suggesting that his Cybertruck wasn't going to use brake pads because it had regenerative braking. Well, yeah, that only works when your battery is below 90% capacity. If your battery's got more than 90% capacity in it, your regenerative braking doesn't work at all. The software won't allow it to even try. But it's pretty good stuff, or a pretty good system when your battery is below 90%. You can see that you're going to have to slow down. You just roll the throttle off and you hear the thing. It makes a different sort of a noise when the motor is being driven rather than driving. Presumably you're using the upper side of the gear face. No, you're using the same side of the gear face, you're putting the strain on the opposite side of the bearings in the gearbox case. And maybe the shape of the teeth have got something to do with it, but anyway, it does make a different noise. So how's that for spontaneous impulse buy? You go to look for 2 loaves of bread and a litre of milk and you come home with half a pizza. And hopefully a bit of pretty reasonable sort of video in the pan. We had 3 millimetres of rain on Saturday, today's Monday. And the potholes have still got water in it. Hello, duck, duck, duck. I'm not worried about getting home because I think I've got enough power to do it with no drama. So it's been an interesting little learning curve. We're nearly back to the bitumen. And hopefully, as far as travel logs are concerned, we'll have a good one. So that was the one car I've passed going the other way all day on the dirt. What a sort of way to get out here to be able to see there's nothing coming. I'm finding if you very, very gradually open the throttle up, you don't suddenly see that 43 watt hours per kilometre becomes 60 or 70. If you use a big handful of twistiness to get from 15 k's to 40 k's, it might take you a kilometre up the road before your previous 43 kilometres, 43 watt hours per kilometre slowly settles back down to maybe 45 or 46, because the high acceleration uses just so much more current than, you know, steadily maintaining what you've got and gradually speeding up a little bit. So, you know, I would say until I'd ridden this thing for 1,000 kilometres, I had very little idea of what I was doing. Now I've ridden it for 1,000 k's, I sort of know what I'm doing. But only just. And as I pointed out, 1,000 kilometres at 40 kilometres an hour is the equivalent of 25 hours pilot in command. It's good to know I can bring a pizza box home underneath my hat. Okay, so I've done about 45, maybe 46 kilometres, and I've used 48% of the battery. Doing 40 k's down this hill, and I'm sort of gradually rolling the throttle off. There we go. That growling as we hit 37 k's and suddenly slowed down to 24, even though we're still going down the hill. That was the regenerative braking kicking in. And whereas we were on 44 watt hours per kilometre going up the hill, we were on 43 watt hours per kilometre when we got to the bottom. So it doesn't do a huge amount. This is just so much more pleasant than riding along the highway at 45 k's and sharing it with tourists and B-doubles. And I think right now I might be looking more or less straight at my place. That tree is just fading off to the left. Yeah, I think that's a view of my place. There's the big hill over there, plonk going past the telegraph pole, that's got Hogue's Mountain Tower on it. One of these days I'll load up the bloody camera, the binoculars, the adapter and the tripod, and we'll go to the 3 places that I think you can actually, maybe 4 places, and I'll endeavour to do it all in one video. Maybe go to the far end and start the video and work my way back. Because I do still harbour a lingering ambition to video my front gate from the other side of the valley, sort of thing. Arms and torso are not cold, but as we're probably going down through about 6 degrees at the moment in the shade, the knees and thighs get a little bit cool. Also seriously thinking about digging out the white silk scarf and wrapping it around my neck between the top of the jacket and the bottom of the helmet. And if it means I look like a big old wannabe, well, who gives a shit? I can't make myself look any less ostentatious at this point, no matter what I do. I don't know what it looks like without sunglasses on, but I'm getting the most amazing golden horizontal light effects, which is kind of sort of what I was hoping for. This is the way Australia's backcountry roads used to look when I was a kid, before the council got in there and tried to clean it up because they had a few hundred hours of grader time and nothing else to do with it. So they'd send them out to push the trees over on the road reserves on the secondary, ring road network, as we call them. And it's between the fences where the road goes, that's really the only place where native species can live without being constantly trampled and grazed. And during a drought they get bloody crash grazed anyway, but usually they run into the paddock while the huge mob goes through, and then they come back and re-establish afterwards. Australia is going to get a hell of a lot better when the bloody fossil fuel, refined transport fuel gets too expensive to burn on shit that doesn't matter. And smashing up the vegetation in one of the last native wildlife reserves that's spread out all over the country, which is the little bit that does not get farmed, between the fence lines, wherever the roads go. That's one of the places that will really benefit. When the motion lotion runs out. This thing's pretty much like the bloody ancient Arab idea of the flying carpet. You sit on your chair and scoot across the landscape. Not wrapped up, separated from the landscape, enclosed in a little box. You really do feel like you're in it. 40 kilometres an hour, 47, 48 watt hours per kilometre coming up the steepest hill on today's ride. 48, 49 watt hours per kilometre. And yeah, quite cool after a long period in the shade like that. I really don't know how the camera's light meter dominant aperture is going to deal with all this. Not my problem, I just get to watch it afterwards. I think my son told me there was a big football game on today. Maybe they're all sitting in front of a bloody screen getting drunk watching. As the story goes, 13 latent homosexuals competing against 13 different latent homosexuals struggling for possession of a symbolic sperm packet with which they attempt to impregnate the symbolic legs at the opposite end of the field, deep in the enemy team's territory. Meanwhile, they advance by the numbers, retreat by the numbers, and practice standard British battle drill. Start them off doing this when they're 6 years old. Pat them on the head for doing it all the way until they're 16 years old. Then give them a bloody rifle and send them over the hill to murder the blokes on the other side and rape all their bloody women. Ask them. In Bosnia, Macedonia, Herzegovina, Slovenia, Slovakia. It's absolutely bog standard. Get them started with team sport, organised team sport. And they're a whole lot easier to command on the battlefield when they're late stage teenagers. Between the ages of puberty and marriage, when young fellas have to go out cooperating in teams and do something dangerous to frighten the shit out of themselves and make them understand that life is serious. In Oceania, the up-and-coming young fellas get together in teams and they carve a canoe. And they provision the canoe and they stock the canoe and they test the canoe and they get in the canoe and they sail over to another bloody island, well over the horizon. And when they get there, they have a bit of a party and a festival and they give gifts to the people who live there, and maybe they pick up a girlfriend and maybe they don't. When they're finished, they come back. Some of them might stay there with the girlfriend, some might organise to bring the girlfriend back with them. When they get back from their great big dangerous boat vessel, or boat ride in the vessel they built themselves, they then continue to use that vessel for the rest of their lives as a fisherman's boat, all sharing it. And if anybody died along the way or got eaten by a shark or fell over and got drowned, or if the whole bloody boat swamps and goes to the bottom of the ocean, well, that's what makes it interesting for the people who survive. They learn what not to do. Trouble with the bloody Europeans is that the way they give their young men something to do between the ages of puberty and marriage is to go and steal the neighbour's grain stores. And today's grand final day, so they're all stamping and cheering and waving their arms and worrying about which mob of latent homosexuals stuck their symbolic sperm packet between the symbolic legs at the other team's end of the field the most times. Who got more of their neighbours' women pregnant and then run away home and left somebody else to raise the kid? Like they did. In what used to be Yugoslavia, where they had actual purpose-built rape camps in order to make the women of the neighbouring tribe feel more miserable. That's because Europeans are civilised, civic lice. Think about that, civic lice, civilisation. In order to have civilisation, you need public monuments and public servants. You want to be civilised, you've got to build a town hall and have a tax collector. And you can be as civilised as you like without being cultured at all, because the cultured lifestyle, that builds topsoil with the passing of the time. You agree or you may differ, that definition's mine. Here in Australia, what used to be a land of cultured food plants has been replaced by a nation of civilised land lice. This is bloody sad to behold, but you know, I can remember when there was 11 million Australians, and now there's about 25 million of them. And when there was 11 million, only about half of them lived in cities. Now there's 27 or 28 million. Probably 22 million of them live in the towns and cities. There's very few people in Australia actually live out on the land. Towns and cities and suburbs. Filled full of cities' ends. 34%. Probably about 58 kilometres at this point. 49 watt hours per kilometre, and we're doing 42. K's, roll throttle off. Back on the Barilda driveway. And after Nant Park Road, this place feels like a bloody superhighway, doesn't it? Now I just have to figure out how to heat up half a dusty pizza on a potbelly stove. I'm thinking wrapping it in alfoil will probably work. I didn't have a slight cramp in my right hip coming up this hill, but I guess I've been sitting in one spot for quite a while. I have a feeling that pannier bag was starting to touch the spokes. I have been threatening to fix that, make a better arch. Guess I had better do it. Yeah, just heard it again. Just go up and see what I can do. More better. Such things, you either fix them when they give you the little bit of warning, or they go in further and stick in a spoke and bugger your back wheel and tip you off. Okay. It's only after sunset down there in the valley. You come up here and the sun's still shining, see? Okay. Right. Okay. And we're home. Okay, let's see what we got. Waha! We got half a pizza. Absolutely undamaged. There you go. The electric pizza from Deepwater. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.